Let me ask you something that religious scholars have debated for 1,000 years. And still haven't answered. Not really. You believe in God. Maybe you pray 5 times a day. Maybe you go to church every Sunday. Maybe you've read your holy book cover to cover more than once. And somewhere in that book, in that faith, in that tradition you were raised in, you were told that God knows everything. Not just what you do. What you will do. Before you do it. Before you were born. Before your mother was born. Before this world existed at all. God already knew. Every choice. Every sin. Every moment of doubt. Every prayer you'd say and every one you'd skip. Written. Sealed. Complete. So here is the question. The one that doesn't get asked in the sermon. The one that gets redirected, softened, or answered with something that sounds wise but leaves you exactly where you started. If it was already written, why are you being judged for it? This is not a new question. Every major faith that believes in an all-knowing God has had to face it. Islam has caught our divine decree. The belief that everything, every leaf that falls, every breath you take, every decision you make was written by God 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and the earth. 50,000 years. Before you existed. Before your choice existed. Before the moment you're being judged for existed. It was already there. Already known. Already, in some sense, already decided. Christianity has its own version. Predestination. The idea debated, fought over, split churches over that God chose, before the foundation of the world, who would be saved and who would not. Not based on what they would do. Based on His will alone. And Judaism wrestles with it too. A God who knows the end from the beginning. Who saw every generation before they drew breath. Who knows your heart better than you know it yourself. All-knowing. All-seeing. Complete. So again. If He already knew what you would do. If the pen has been lifted and the ink has dried. If your story was finished before you took your first step into it. Then what exactly is the judgment for the standard answer? And you've heard it is free will. You still chose. God knowing doesn't mean God forced. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like a solution. But sit with it a little longer. Because there's a problem. If I write a story, a novel, a screenplay, a play. And in that story, a character makes a terrible choice. Did the character choose or did I knew what they would do before they did it? I designed the world they live in. I designed them, their fears, their weaknesses, their blind spots. Every condition that led to their choice I created. And then, at the end of the story, I put them on trial for what they did. Is that justice or is that something else? Here is where it gets harder. Because it's not just about the choice itself. It's about the conditions of the choice. You were born in a particular country, a particular family, a particular century. You did not choose any of that. You were raised in a particular religion or no religion. You were taught certain things were true before you were old enough to question whether they were. Your first understanding of God, of right and wrong, of what happens after death, came from people around you. Not from your own investigation. Not from your own free choice. From the accident of where and when and to whom you were born. And God, the all-knowing God, knew that too. He knew which family you'd be born into. He knew which faith you'd be handed. He knew whether that faith would lead you toward Him or away. He designed the conditions. He knew the outcome. And the judgment still comes. So when someone is born into a family that never mentioned God, never opened a holy book, never once pointed toward anything beyond this life, and that person lives and dies without ever finding the faith they were apparently supposed to find, is that their failure or is it something more complicated than we're allowed to say out loud? Now here is the part where people get uncomfortable. Because there are 2 directions this argument pulls. The first direction, if everything is written, nothing is your fault. You're off the hook. You did what was always going to happen. The judgment is theater. The crime was predetermined. The verdict was ready before the trial began. That's one direction. But here is the other. If you genuinely believe genuinely, not just as a word you say that your choices are real, that your will is free, that when you decided to do something good or something terrible, you actually decided. Then you already know the answer to this question. You felt the choice. You felt the weight of it. The moment before you did something you knew was wrong, there was a pause. A hesitation. Something in you that knew, and chose anyway. That pause is the whole argument. That pause is what makes judgment real. The question is whether that pause was yours, or whether it was written too. And this is where every tradition draws its line differently. Some say, God's knowledge is outside time. He sees all moments simultaneously, past, present, future, the way you might look at a map. Seeing the whole road doesn't mean you're driving the car. Some say, the writing is based on what God foresaw you choosing freely, not what He forced. Knowledge and causation are not the same thing. Some say, the mystery is intentional. You are not meant to fully understand. Faith requires the questions to remain open. These are serious answers, offered by serious people, believed by billions. But they don't fully close the gap. Because the map analogy breaks when the map maker also designed the terrain. And foreknowledge based on foreseen free choice still leaves the question of why some people were given conditions that made belief easy and others were given conditions that made it nearly impossible. And the mystery is intentional is true, but it is also the answer that ends all other answers. Which is sometimes exactly what it's meant to do. Here is what I keep coming back to. If a human judge sentenced someone for a crime the judge had designed, foreseen, and done nothing to prevent, we would not call that justice. We would call that something else entirely. But we are told, and most of us believe, that God's justice is different. Higher. Beyond our ability to fully measure or understand. Maybe that's true. Maybe divine justice operates on a scale and with a wisdom that makes our moral instincts look like a child trying to grade the sun. Or maybe, and this is the question, not the answer. Maybe we've never been allowed to ask this loudly enough to find out. So I'll leave you here. Two things written at the same time. In the same tradition. In the same breath. God knows everything you will ever do. And you will be judged for what you do. Both are true. Both are taught. Both are believed by billions of people, across centuries, across continents. So how do you hold them both? How do you live inside that tension? How do you make a real choice, feel the weight of it, own it, answer for it? When somewhere, in a record that existed before you did, it was already there, I don't know. And I think if you're honest, neither do you. The unanswered.